Morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation of Township of Portsmouth, March 25th, 2026. I'll start with roll call. Councilor Goyda.
Present.
Councilor Spoulos. Present. Councilor Bailey.
Here.
Councilor Hurst. Present. So this will be our moment of reflection. All right, that concludes our moment of reflection. Ms. White, you have confirmation. Actually, I'm going to switch to our clerk. Ms. Brotherson.
Council approves the March 25th, 2026 agenda addendum as circulated, and that council approves the additions to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.6, questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff regarding the March 25th, 2026 council agenda. And closed item 14.6, confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before the administrative tribunals affecting municipality local board, and that's with respect to the planning application.
You're gonna move please. Second. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spoulos, any questions or comments? Favor? It's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none. We'll move to our first item, which is correspondence, and we'll welcome the county down with their consultants to the table, please. Morning, Dawn. Sure you don't need an introduction, but the other two fellas we're just quite familiar with. Sure. That'll be part of our so.
The slide deck or there, okay. Are you gonna advance or?
Laura over here.
Oh,
Just,
okay.
yeah, just let me know when to go back.
Okay, great, thank you.
Make it bigger.
Want to close something?
Full screen, is there a full screen option?
PDF is sometimes.
You do your thing. Carry on. Sorry, I made it difficult. Great, welcome.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, dear Mayor Sealy, to council. Glad to be here to present the Wellington Road 46 road study. Can I move to the agenda slide, please? So here's the agenda for our presentation. I'm going to start by introducing our consultant team from Dillon, and then I'm going to provide a brief background as to some previous reports, presentations, and resolutions that have occurred over the past few years. And then Dillon is going to provide a study overview, touch on the province's Bill 60 and how it may impact the study. The Dillon team is going to talk about the existing site conditions, review some preliminary alternatives, and just provide more details on the study process. So this presentation is the first step, and very important one in our public engagement and stakeholder engagement plan. And finally, we're going to go over the study schedule and next steps. And the purpose today is not only to introduce the study, but to get your feedback on it. Next thing. So joining me today is Jeff Exesis from Dillon and Greg Hayes from Dillon Consulting. Both have local experience in the area road network and are part of a multifaceted project team. And attending as well is Ian Borsick from our Dillon team. So the background slide. All right, so really how we got here today is back in 2019, we were starting our Brock Road reconstruction project. That was a continuation of the from 401 to Wellington Road 34, and we're building Brock Road through or Wellington Road 46 through Aberfoyle with the two roundabouts, maintaining the 4-lane road section. So at that time, we did receive in 2019 a resolution from Portsmouth Council stating that it'd be highly desirable to revitalize Aberfoyle into a pedestrian-friendly hamlet with commercial and retail enterprises once the Morriston bypass has been completed. So in response to some resolution. I came to Puslinch Council in June of 2019 to talk about the reconstruction project and some of the background, the previously approved EA for Gordon Street and Wellington Road 46. And further feedback, when we started our countywide road master action plan, as part of that study, we included a separate study itself of Aberfoyle, the Aberfoyle Road Diet and Strategic Traffic Analysis, and that was approved in September of 2021. And out of that September 21, there was the resolution that is shown on there, discussing that we'll do further study when the mid-block interchange was going to be completed. And that strategic traffic analysis was also presented to Puslinch Council in January of 2022. So with the mid-block interchange being completed in summer of 2025, we've moved forward with getting direction from County Council to commence this study and get it funded for 2026. And that's where we stand today. Study's going to be multifaceted. It's not just going to be a technical study. That was made direction from County Council. It's not just going to be about traffic, but economic review and extensive consultation. It's going to occur. With that background, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and Greg.
Thanks, Don. If you can flip to the next slide, please. So the study overview. So the study itself that we're going to be looking at is Wellington Road 46 between Wellington Road 34 and Kilmore Road. So essentially between the two roundabouts. Puslinch Council had advocated for a road diet. So some sort of a repurposing of the road. Road diet can be many different things, but we essentially reducing the number of travel lanes and repurposing those lanes for could be parking, could be active transportation, it could be a number of different things, but some sort of a road diet. And they made this comment at the time based on the fact that it's an existing community safety zone and there are safety concerns for the businesses, residents within the area. Next slide, please. So the township recommendations. These were various recommendations that the township has brought forward over time. So as you can see on the figure, at the main intersection at Old Brock Road, there was a potential suggestion for a raised crosswalk. And then some of the other suggestions were, like we talked about, the road diet. So the conversion of Brock, one lane in each direction on Brock Road. So to take it from a four travel lanes, 2 lanes in each direction, to a single travel lane in each direction with some sort of additional amenity. So whether it be on-street parking or active transportation infrastructure. There is also talk about the permanent radar signs. There is currently one permanent radar sign on the stretch of roadway in the northbound direction anyways that I drove past on my way in. But there was consideration for additional ones. And in consideration for an additional crosswalk across the corridor. So obviously you have crosswalks at Old Brock Road, but the addition of a crosswalk somewhere else on the corridor. Next slide, please. So Bill 60. Bill 60 is a recent bill introduced by the provincial government, Fighting Delays, Building Faster Act. So the problem with what Bill 60 states is that you cannot remove travel lanes essentially for anything. So it explicitly states a bicycle lane, but then the second part of the bill states any other prescribed purpose, which is quite vague, but essentially is the catch-all for anything else. There are some ways around the bill. You can seek, you can apply to the province or to the councillor to have, like, you can put your plan forward to see if they'll accept it. So it's not a hard no, but Greg, do you have anything else to add on Bill 60?
I've just add that and yeah, as Jeff mentioned, that there's also a possibility of, if a road diet is the preferred solution here, lobbying the government to make an exception for this area or for this type of road diet, if that came out as preferred to this study.
So there was a question provided prior to council that confirming the Brock Road diet was awarded work was underway prior to Bill 60 receiving royal assent and whether the prohibitions do not apply. So to answer that question, the county did, prior to the bill receiving royal assent, did issue a purchase order to a line painting company, noting that should a road diet be the preferred alternative, that line painting company has been awarded that work. Once again, as noted, like the regulations are not released, so as well providing the province, I'd say, justification on a well thought out study, which hope that they would accept that if that's the chosen recommendation to go forward with, that would be good supporting documents. So
I'm gonna interject here real quick because you've taken a snapshot of the proposal, but to me, there's a large component missing. And that component, I don't recall it verbatim, but it also gives exclusion to that number 2 if the contract has been awarded. So what I'm already hearing here is that you're saying that you still have to apply to the province or the minister for an exception. That would not be my interpretation, the way it was penned, and I get the details will come out in the regs, but there's already an avenue in this unintended road that if the contract was awarded, you fall under the statement that a contract has been awarded. Is your opinion that you thus then still have to apply to the ministry for, as of today's pen? I mean, I guess the regs will really detail that. I might confuse that situation.
So based on my understanding with the purchase order that was already approved before that bill was passed, it does seem like if it was the solution was related to really just line painting, then it may be that's the transition provisions would apply to that.
I think too, it'll be up to the province in the sense that you have a PO for line painting work that was signed before the study was done that said the line painting work needs to be done. So I don't know if it's super clear cut that the province would accept the PO as an existing contract.
But
So
that
it's
working on
very
the assumption that we're going to ask them.
well. I guess once we have at the conclusion of the study, depending on what the findings.
Sure,
state,
we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Fine.
I think in the end, we have provided some, like by signing issuing that PO, trying to meet the intent at least that we knew at the time. So I think trying to cover our bases.
Yeah,
Fair to see how the study ends up.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Next slide, please. And this is just a little bit about background of the existing conditions of the corridor. So currently the corridor is 4 travel lanes, 2 travel lanes in each direction. It's a posted 50 and it has sidewalks, narrow sidewalks on discontinuous on through the corridor. There's gaps that are missing. It is a community safety zone. It does have the radar signs. So there is some work being done to slow traffic and calm traffic, but more work can be done. And there was some automated speed enforcement that was on the corridor until the province removed it. So that's what we're working with today. And next slide, Greg's gonna go into what we're gonna do in the future. Oh, no, this is me too. So this figure on the screen is just sort of an overview of the study area in the corridor itself. So on the figure, you can see the red line is the actual corridor. And what we've highlighted here on the figure is some of the different routes that we've looked at or will be looking at. So some of the brown routes there are the secondary impact roads. So if we reduce capacity on Brock Road, there is a potential that it will divert the traffic to other corridors. So we're going to be looking at traffic diversion specifically on Victoria, Concession Road 7, Gilmore, and Wellington Road 34, as well as Wellington Road 36 in the south. And the other thing to note on there is we've highlighted some of the travel paths. So travelers along the 401, they're heading up to Guelph. They may currently use Brock Road. If that corridor becomes more constrained, it'd be push them over to Highway 6 and vice versa. We're also gonna be looking at the impacts of the mid-block interchange. We're gonna be required a license with to streetlight data. And we're gonna be looking at the historical travel patterns before and after the mid-block interchange opened to see what kind of shift there was when the mid-block change opened. Did it impact traffic on the corridor? And we're also gonna be using that data to understand the origin destination patterns within the study area to help us forecast if there is a reduction in capacity, auto capacity on the corridor, where do we think that traffic will divert to? So we can look at that by understanding the origin destinations of the trips. We can make assumptions about where they would move to, their logical route choice, if that corridor becomes constrained. So this figure just overviews some of the various different roads we'll be looking at. We'll be obviously looking at Brock Road, the red line there, in the most detail. We're looking at the actual roundabouts and the intersection of Old Brock Road. On the secondary study area roads, we'll be more looking just at the link level volumes. But yeah, this figure just sort of highlights the broad area that we'll be looking at. We won't be looking at just the corridor. We'll be looking at the adjacent roadways as well. Next slide, please.
Okay, so this slide, on the left, you see a preliminary list of alternatives that we're planning to consider as part of this study. So the first one is to maintain existing 4 travel lanes and really not change the corridor. Second one there would maintain the 4 travel lanes and introduce traffic calming, so measures to slow traffic down without reducing the number of lanes. And then the third one there is roadway lane redesignation. So this is one of the 2 road diet options we have there. So line painting and signage to convert to say one of the lanes to parking or something like that. So that'd be one of the ways you could do a road diet. And then the other one is more visible roadway reconfiguration, where we look at modifications like potentially a median, sidewalk widening, cycling improvements, as well as traffic calming or bump outs. So it'd be some combination of those type of improvements. And then on the right, we have a graphic that just shows kind of high level areas we plan to look at in the evaluation. So what we would do is a comparative evaluation to look at how each alternative compares to the others across a number of different criteria. So the kind of key areas we've got listed there are traffic and transportation impacts, construction costs, economic uplift potential. So as Don mentioned, we're planning to look at kind of what this could mean for land use in the area and the economy in the area. And then, other considerations, and we'll have a more fleshed out list as we get further into the study, but just to give an overall sense of kind of how we plan to look at these alternatives. If you can flip to the next slide. So this is our study process at a high level. So as Don mentioned, we're early in this study. This presentation is really our first step in engagement for the study. So first, through early 2026, we were working through background review, scoping of the study, and starting work on traffic forecasting, demand forecasting for the area. We're now at the very start of our initial round of public and stakeholder engagement, which is planned to proceed through the spring. And I've got a bit more detail on that on the next slide. But after that, through the summer, the plan is to be defining, assessing, and evaluating the alternatives and working on a draft functional design plan. Then in the fall is when we'd come out with a second round of engagement to talk about the preliminary preferred solution. We have a technical advisory committee meeting planned in the fall and a public open house. And then a second council meeting toward the end of the study before we'd move into finalizing and preparing the final feasibility report for the study. One thing to note for this study is we're not following the class environmental assessment process for this. And that's because the types of improvements that we're considering here aren't aren't types of projects that would require a Class EA study. So this is following a feasibility study approach. But in some ways, it's following a similar kind of methodology in some ways, looking at alternatives and considering the option of doing nothing. So we've used some elements of that type of process, but really tailored the engagement and the project overall, the study to the needs of the specific study. Yeah, so the plan is to wrap up by the end of this year, and yeah, proceed to the next slide there. So this is just a bit more detail on engagement through the study. So that first round of engagement, really the purpose is to introduce the study and collect some information on existing problems and opportunities in the area. So this presentation is the first step, and then following this, the plan is to launch our study webpage and online questionnaire in April. And that would collect perspectives of people in the area on the corridor and on problems and opportunities they're seeing for the area. We have a technical advisory committee planned for later in the spring, and that would get a little bit more into what we're finding through the survey, as well as the traffic studies done to date at that point, and start looking at the alternatives and the evaluation criteria that we would use to compare those. And then in the fall, we have our second round of engagement there. So purpose there is to provide an update and talk a bit about what are the problems and opportunities we identified, alternatives we considered, and the preferred alternative. So that second TAC meeting there is we present basically the preliminary preferred alternative for some input and feedback before going to our public open house. And then following that, we would come back to Township Council for a second presentation to talk about the results of the study before we finalize it with the report at the end of the year. So go to the next slide. This is just kind of quick overview of next steps for the study. So yeah, as I mentioned, April of this year, the plan is to launch a webpage questionnaire. And then following that, we'll look to we'll review the results of that study in May and look to set up that first TAC meeting. So thanks for having us here, and yeah, we're happy to field any questions or comments or thoughts.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say thanks for being here and thanks for taking on this work. This idea of a road diet is something that this council's been sort of looking at for quite some time. So it's encouraging to see that it's going to be looked at now in a sort of more detailed and comprehensive way. So thank you. I just have a few questions. I guess when I'm looking at this, if you put cost aside, it seems like there's kind of like two potentially competing objectives. So one is moving traffic in an efficient and direct way, and the other is the livability and the safety of Aberfoyle specifically. And so I'm just wondering if you can kind of speak to how those two objectives will be weighed against one.
Yeah, so I think that, so like Greg was saying, the present and portion of the presentation is, this isn't gonna follow a formal environmental assessment process, but the way we'll assess the alternatives will be very similar to what would be done in an environmental assessment process. So transportation conditions or traffic impacts will be weighed alongside of potential for economic development. And even within transportation, it'll be operational and technical. There's a number of different ways, but we will look at them all together, and we'll have to make a decision collectively. What is the best solution? So yeah, certain elements will have different weights. I mean, But yeah, that's essentially, that's how we'll look at all the different criteria, if you think about it like how you do an
Is
EA.
there any way that like to quantify or to sort of like metrics sort of for that livability component, or is it mostly just, you know, this is what we think will happen, this is,
Yeah,
it's harder to quantify, I guess. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that, and Don said, you know, it's not just a technical study in terms of the traffic, but I guess what not that I'm worried about it, but if there's all the weight is put on traffic patterns specifically and not equally weighted with the livability and the safety of Aberfoyle, it seems like the study is starting out biased already against the road diet. So I guess what I'm just trying to understand is, or ask, is that the two sort of components are given equal sort of looked at equally and assessed equally, so that there's kind of like a fair assessment of the pros and cons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. I think an important thing that we'll kind of figure out more as we get into this is like the magnitude of, say, what are, you know, the traffic concerns versus what is the, you know, the potential for economic benefits here. And that kind of magnitude of impact of the project helps to kind of determine what's, you know, what makes sense as far as weighing the two. And also something we'll look at more through our engagement. But yeah, we're not coming into this with a plan to, you know, give all the weight to traffic like that. We do want to really look at what are the different, you know, benefits or impacts, and
Yeah.
assess it in a fair way.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
The project manager has his hand up for me,
Oh,
something like
okay.
that, so I'll just give him an opportunity. Ian, I see your hand up. If you'd like to add some comments?
Yeah, I was just gonna to jump in and say the intention is specifically to highlight what those trade-offs may be. And so the intention of the study is to kind of have an independent approach, flush out what the social benefits are, the economic benefits, potential impacts, and transportation, and kind of put them up against each other so that we can have that comparative evaluation and see the trade-offs, or maybe there is a happy medium, or maybe there isn't, and like it's an all or nothing. But like we would need to kind of put it all down there in order to kind of see how they measure up against each other, the different impacts.
On one of the slides I noticed that it looks like there's a technical advisory committee and that there's a couple of meetings scheduled. And I'm just curious who would form that advisory committee? What is the role of that committee and who's on it?
So yeah, the specific invite list hasn't been determined yet, but the plan is to include, Township of Plus Lynch would be one staff from the township. We're planning to include, likely, would be, I think, the county staff on that as well, and potentially the city of Guelph, MTO. But yeah, something to be kind of determined a bit more closer to. I don't know if Don, you had thoughts on, you know, other groups you wanted to highlight for that, but at this point, that's kind of the initial list.
Yeah, what you touched on there, like the MTO is pretty key to understand. They've got the latest traffic volumes to understand what the improvements will be with the Morriston bypass in the future. So I think they're important to know. And then the city of Guelph, I mean, we've had recent meetings with the county, city, and Plus Lynch staff on their plans for what they are doing with the Clare multi-secondary plan and their completion of an EA there. So planning to have those technical staff there. And I think out of the public survey, there's also a possibility, if there's interest, I guess, from others, that we think that would help us better understand the situation. That would be welcome to, they'd be willing to join us as well.
Okay, that's good. Just last question, you talked about you're gonna launch sort of like a website for the project and do a questionnaire. And I'm just curious how that information, how would people know that that questionnaire is there to complete it?
So we are planning to issue a notice to basically announce the start of the study and the questionnaire. So it would, provide kind of just an overview. A lot of the details I just went through would introduce the study, and the plan is to send that to residents in the area as well as we have a contact list we're finalizing right now for that. So
Great.
As well as the Propulso, Jeff, if you want to talk, Greg, if you want to talk about the Propulso for it.
oh yeah, good point. Thanks, Ian. So we're also planning to use it's called a geo marketing software called Propulso that allows us to basically send like targeted ads to people who pass through the study area. So that would be to their phone if they've gone through the area, you might have gotten an ad like that in the past. So it's kind of like a newer approach for getting a notice out. So a way to reach like a kind of a different segment of the population that otherwise might not hear about a project like this.
Thank you.
Council Spose? Yes, couple of questions. So again, really great, Councilor Boyer's comments. Thank you for coming. It's very exciting to have these on the books and actually see something coming before election time. So, great. First of all, following up with Councilor Boyer's comments on the economic benefits, who will be your economic advisor or consultant to look at the benefit side of the and assessing the potential for the economic uplift of the area?
So we do have a specialist at Dillon. One of our colleagues is heading up that study. So his name is Anthony Loris. I believe he's a planner by trade and has a lot of experience with these types of economic related studies.
Will be
Further to that, Yard Burns, county is part of our internal county team, so.
that's perhaps just the county going to be involved.
Yeah.
So somebody like from the county, would they be on attack as well?
Jan has been on their initial kickoff meeting, so they're.
Hey, we're currently doing a community improvement plan, and I guess according to sort of ties into what they're doing. How are the two interleaf type of thing? Is can one go independent of the other, or does one need to feed into the other?
Through Mr. Chair, I think it's good information that we can provide to the team. So we're doing a community improvement plan update. We're also have grant funding for beautification of our downtowns. So there is potentially some overlap, but certainly information that would be helpful as we look at this as apropos is included in those projects.
Yeah, and last comment is, we had numerous council resolutions. We also always indicating a middle lane for left turns considerations. Notice your slide, you said a lane in each direction, and certainly I think a left turn lane would be beneficial for traffic in the morning, getting to the school type of thing, and getting into the leaving the community center and getting in the community center, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so a center left turn lane would be part of the analysis. That would be part of one of the scenarios. Yeah, for a corridor like this, it would be, I don't want to say mandatory, but it would be considering the number of driveways and the fact that it's a county road that carries trucks and things like that, a center left turn lane probably necessary. So that will certainly be included in our analysis.
One last question. In terms of this mid-block intersection for mid-block that came in, Don, do you have any feel if there's been any change in traffic patterns as a result of a mid-block coming in? In other words, are we experiencing less traffic through that flow as a result of that, or more or less the same?
To Celia, I know we had our discussions with Guelph and the township and ourselves. Guelph did some initial traffic counts. We said a slight shift, but I don't have the exact numbers. That's something that I think we're going to continue to review. I mean, we do have the cameras collecting speed and volumes through the Brock Road, so we've got some good data to look at, but it might be a slight shift, but what kind of degree, I can't say right now.
So, thank you.
Councilor Bailey?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I guess just some questions based on the presentation today. One comment I had, here what slide it was the slide that showed the adjacent roadways. But we had mentioned the, you know, what is the goal here? It is economic benefit, it is safety. I see a goal is trying to push some of that traffic out to Highway 6. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think there really should be a traffic pattern using the existing, you know, highway infrastructure that's now existent. So to me, that would be a top goal of mine, is to try to push that traffic out. So, which leads into Councillor Godin had a question about how to weight some of the criteria. And I guess looking at the different criteria, I wondered how it was weighted. So how do you take traffic, transportation, construction costs, economic uplift, and other considerations? I'm not sure what that is, and how do you actually weight that? So looking ahead, I might expect to see some sort of chart that shows, here are the different components. If we weight it based on this, this is what we get. If we weight it based on this, this is what we get for an outcome. So looking ahead, I'd like to see some, with the options, the data behind it, or how it was weighted based on certain criteria. So just some comments on that. The study process, you highlighted how it started in early 2026. I would also like to see maybe in there how it actually initially started in 2019. I think it was Councillor Sapoulis that, you know, did the original motion to put forward a road diet, just so that when we're all looking back, we can see how this actually started in 2019. There was some resolutions in 2020, so it didn't just start in 2026. And I think it would be nice to highlight, you know, how far back we've been, you know, wanting this kind of work to happen.
Councillor Bailey, Ian had his hand up when you were initially saying some comments, so I might just give him an opportunity for you.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to speak to the evaluation and the weighting. There's many different approaches that we can take for that, and I totally appreciate what you're saying. You could have a transportation focused evaluation and then kind of a weighted more towards social benefits. Ultimately, it's a number, and I don't know if we want to be taking the approach that we're hanging our hat on the final bottom number. I think it's going to be a little bit more of taking some of the qualitative criteria as well, because those are going to be harder to put a physical number to in the evaluation. So I think it's gonna be a little bit of quantitative and qualitative, and some pros and cons as part of the evaluation. But I agree, it will need to be all kind of laid out together so that you can see the differences and the trade-offs between them.
Yeah. I think from living in the area, to me, a trade-off. So if traffic is needing to slow down, or if there's a delay, or if there's an inconvenience a little bit in the traffic, to me that outweighs, you know, the benefits to the safety and the benefits to the walkability and the benefits to the community. So yeah, I don't know how you put a number on that, but to me that adds more value.
Yeah, as due diligence, often when we approach things, safety is paramount. So that's usually has the highest weighting and is like a critical flaw kind of approach. And then, you know, we look at the other aspects after that. But we'll have to look at that a little bit more in depth once we define the specific evaluation criteria. And we need to be clear, because you don't want to have 10 criteria under transportation and 2 for social. So all of a sudden the weighting is totally out of whack. So it needs to be approached a little bit more uniformly between the different categories, let's call them.
Great, good. So I guess touching on that too, a question I had was what data will actually be collected in the study? So, you know, we've talked about we're going to do some data collecting. Can you speak to what actually we're going to be looking for?
Yes, definitely. So we will be collecting data from the county. The county has quite a robust count system on county roads. So the roads that are questioned that are county roads, we will get counts from the county. We will also be reaching out to push some staff to see if there's any data on the local roads, specifically Wellington and roads like that. So we will be collecting data. We'll also be using a big data source called Streetlight Data, that mines data from cell phones. And we can use the data to, we're not gonna be using the streetlight data for specific counts. We're gonna be more using it for big picture stuff, to understanding the trip patterns. So we know where the trips are going to and coming from. So between the on the road data collection, and fortunately, like Don mentioned, there is that count station right on Brock Road, which is great. And it's been there for a number of years, so we can use that data, the historical data, to look at. There was a question about the mid-block interchange, so we can look at the volumes right on 34 to understand, did they change before, did they change after the mid-block interchange opened? Did they go down, did they go up, anything like that? So we can look at some historical data that way as well. So our main data sources will be traffic data from the county, from the township, and then from streetlight data. And then we'll also be using some peripheral studies. So obviously we'll have to forecast traffic demand through the area. So in order to do that, in addition to those sources we have, we'll be using, Dylan worked with the county on the roads action master plan, as well as their DC work. So we have the growth forecast. So we'll be using the county's growth forecast, as well as any information we can get from the information we'll get from the Clare Mulvey secondary plan on their trip generation and forecasting, to help us forecast the future growth. So we'll be using lots of traffic data, land use data, and some big data from Streetlight. So
Okay, yeah, the traffic pattern streetlight data sounds really interesting to be able to tap into. That's interesting to know. Can you tell from there? Who's from out of town? Like, can you tell how much traffic is not local?
So we don't know, we won't know, the data is like anonymized quite a bit, like when we get it, so we won't know. We have our study area is essentially Puslinch, so we'll be able to, we can essentially use, the way you query the data is you can essentially put gates on the roads. So we can, if we put a gate on, on 34 southbound, sort of at the Guelph boundary, and then we put gates on 401 East, 401 West, Highway 6 South, things like that. We can see the number of vehicles and the percentage of the travel that goes to each of those, but we won't know. We could make assumptions. I mean, if they enter 34 just south of Guelph, and then they exit the study area on 401 eastbound, I mean, we could assume it's so we could kind of make some assumptions, but we wouldn't know definitively. It would, and it is a sample, right? So it's not.
Yeah, that would just be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Sorry, I had a few questions. I just want to make sure.
Well, she's thinking of that. I know the county has supplied by postal code the infractions for the speed. And there was percentages given that were residents versus non-residents, so I don't know if it's possible to use that as a starting point for the volumes, because it was substantially more people out of the county that were receiving the tickets.
Just my last question, it ties into the traffic patterns and things, but turning, just knowing, because I drive this regularly, but trying to turn out of the community center, where there is no turning lane, and there's a stoplight right there, and anyway, there's a lot of things happening. Kids are walking out of the school, parents are trying to turn, no sidewalk coming from the sidewalk into the community center, no sidewalk on the other side. So there is just a lot to consider around the traffic patterns, specifically at school drop off and pickup. So the 9 and the 3 are just something to highlight there. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Yes, Hurst. Yeah, thanks, gentlemen. I'll keep my comments pretty briefly. I think my colleagues are asked a lot of really pertinent questions. I think a couple, from my perspective, is one of the outcomes in my mind, and I think this is a long time coming, so I very much appreciate this like taking flight in terms of getting on it, but it's really driving alternative routes that exist or will exist and keeping them out of Aberfoyle for this through traffic. I think that's really what my goal of this process is. So I hope that hopefully that's captured. I think a couple of the other pieces, and I think I'm very supportive of. The roundabout to roundabout, the medians, the turning lanes. I think it's somebody that travels that somewhat frequently. That's always a real challenge, and then overlay that with the community safety zone. So I think there's a lot of really unique pieces here. I'm glad that you talked about, to a degree, the Clear Multi impact, but that is today, and what it'll be 10 years from now, it's gonna be monumentally different. So I think I'm really encouraged when you go through this study to very much comprehend that, or attempt to comprehend that. And I think it's a great opportunity now, if we talk about diverting traffic, like now versus 10 years from now, because there's gonna be like 10,000 more people, or however many, and all those vehicles that are generating there. And my last comment, I think this is like what I look for. Hopefully this doesn't come across as negative, but like when I drive up Courtright Road West in Guelph, that's like the tickle trunk of every little traffic calming thing that I think anybody can dream of. I hope that isn't what Aberfoyle is. When it comes to like lanes and bumps and boulevards, like it's like you're driving an F1 car through there. So I think that's not what my vision of Aberfoyle is, but I think there are a lot of really good examples that probably the county has at their discretion, as well as Dylan and other work that you do to look at what are similar communities and what's worked there and what's practical for both the residents, the businesses, and the through traffic, and like come up with a really reasonable solution here. So I'm looking forward to the study. I think it'll be really well received. So yeah, looking forward to getting underway. Thanks.
I'm gonna jump around, you're just gonna have to bear with it. On that note, I don't believe there's appetite from this council nor county council to do hard construction changes. The road was just built 2019, 2020. Painting lines and doing sort of calming measures that could be reversed if there's unforeseen consequences is one conversation. Digging up the whole road and reconstructing it, I don't feel that's should be one of the directions we should be investigating. Is there anywhere in the county where it says there's a priority for moving traffic or social economic benefits? Is it the county's position that, where does the county's position lie on that? What's your priority? Is your priority moving traffic, or is it, social economic? Is there anything that would point to?
Mr. Mayor, I believe in the official plan, it does talk about the need for the county road network to move traffic. I think it's pretty, I think in that, well, that's one section, the transportation section, but if you read how to all together, yeah.
Just as you've heard from the council here, they're competing factors there. So from the elected officials, I would say the social economic stuff is more important than moving, Tim Hortons trucks through Aberfoyle from South End to Guelph. So on that note, we have a power line, a new transmission line coming to Clissolange. And through that, they're creating a TAC committee. And I feel that's why you see a few more questions on that, because we just had a presentation on a TAC committee for that. And they're going to strike a committee, and they're going to assign weight to the criteria. And I very much so believe at this point, is pretty preliminary as well, that a member of this council and staff will be on that committee assigning those weights. I do like what I'm hearing, that, we're gonna see this larger, here's the consequences of this proposal, here's the consequences of, I like that idea. In lieu of that, I'm very concerned about the weight associated to each one. So if there is going to be a TAC committee that assigns weight, I feel there should be a representative from likely county council and Clissolange council on that committee, because I feel the elected official will come from the social economic side of it more than, maybe more than the traffic. Speed citations issued. I wouldn't say that Aberfoyle was number one throughout the trial, but it was top 2, top 3 consistently. And in lieu of that being removed, we're definitely looking for reduction. I feel there might have been an argument that the safety of the community was, well, it was significantly improved with the speeding enforcement cameras. However, even with that, we still saw massive amounts of tickets issued in that community. So I think the fact that that was an ongoing behavioral problem with drivers as part of your consideration. I mentioned it before that the county does have the data, generally speaking, of the postal code locations, so you'll see who, which leads me to your one statement, I don't know which one you made, but target people that pass through Aberfoyle as part of your cell phone spying. I don't feel that if I were somebody traveling from Guelph through the Puslinch and when you say target, maybe you're just looking for where they're starting their or entering the gate or not. But if you're looking for feedback from people that travel through it, I'm living in Guelph. I'm going to tell you, I don't want it one lane each way. Absolutely not. So I don't feel it's fair to have 15,000 people from Guelph steering the decision that affects our residents. Other than knowing if you make it one lane, you're now going to have to go 4 minutes over this way and 5 minutes over that way and take this different road. That's different. But getting their true opinion on whether they should proceed or not, I don't think that's a appropriate way to go about it. And I don't know if that was going to be it. Special attack. Again, the industrial part of Guelph, the South Industrial Park there. Right now, they can use Gordon Street and come down through Aberfoyle. I don't know if that's appropriate. It's unfortunate that, our neighbor to the north hasn't, maybe made Gordon. There's no heavy trucks north of Clare after 7 p.m. At least historically it was. It's unfortunate that they don't make some changes to their infrastructure to drive the traffic to somewhere else. But I don't believe that it's necessary for us to move traffic through Aberfoyle from the south end of Guelph when we have a provincial network nearby. So just a statement. When the speed cameras were being removed, there's a lot of information, we'll call it, floating around. And one thing that I read, and I haven't revisited it to get an answer for myself, and that's why I'll ask you, is I heard there was something either in the regs that would prohibit certain roads from having speed bumps in lieu of the camera. So when Premier Ford wanted the speed camera program ended, it was going to add signs, flashing signs, and speed bumps were mentioned, and I know how to slow down traffic and blah, blah, blah. Well, then I heard this little side conversation that, well, certain roads won't be permitted to have the speed bumps. Do you know anything about that? If you do, please share. And if you do know about it, is Brock Road one of these areas that is prohibited from having the province's speed mitigation in lieu of cameras?
Mr. Mayor, the Road Safety Initiatives Fund, the guidelines, the application have come out. And in those guidelines, there's the eligible costs and ineligible costs. By whatever reading of that, I did not see anything about restricting certain traffic measures. As far as to get that funding, to qualify for that funding. One ineligible cost in there is reducing lanes.
Yes.
So that is noted, but that's only for that application funding, so. But as far as specific roads, I mean, I can double check that I did.
Well,
It didn't seem to say type of road or anything like that, but that was still an eligible type cost.
And it could have just been internet propaganda. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't.
I can comment a little bit more on that. So speed bumps, most traffic calming policies would just indicate where certain, where traffic calming is appropriate. Typically, traffic calming wouldn't be done on an arterial road. So depending on the road classification of 34, I know it's a county road, but so it depends on the classification and where, I don't know if it wouldn't be allowed, but it wouldn't be recommended. Like you wouldn't typically see speed.
We don't do anything typical here. So it's gonna be a good fit. we're always thinking outside the box, so, just because it's not typically done, I don't want it excluded. In lieu of speed cameras, to get back to that behavior where people are complying to the speed limit, I would like that considered. Don't exclude it just because it hasn't been done before. Now, I will say with the monitoring, ongoing monitoring and just boots on the ground experience, I was quite surprised at how long people had, the behavior had remained after the cameras were removed. The speed was reasonable. I think it's going to take, because we are creatures of habit, right? We all are, I think that's fair to say. And so we had created the habit for a majority, not majority because the speeding ticket is still issued, but a lot of people going slow through Aberfoyle. So by the time this is coming back to council, I'd want to ensure that we're using as close to recent data from those collection. I think it might end September, right? Anyways, unless they extend it, because I feel that habit, that behavior is slowly going back to pre-camera speeds, but on good for the community is that the behavior stayed around after the camera is removed, but then gone permanently back to the speed bumps. If the recommendation is not to reduce the lane to provide safety, then possibly other measures similar to the speed bumps to get them to go slower. Oh, and I've drawn the comparison to Mr. Kudo before, 124 traffic counts. It works at one lane each way. I believe it has higher traffic counts currently. I mean, things have changed. Oh, another thought just came in my mind. So I'm very much still going to be pointing to that road. Full disclosure, the county just reconstructed it, and one of the reasonings that I've heard was there was a power line, so it'd be very expensive to move the power line and build the road. So now we're basing economics over increasing the road width. So I just lost my other thought that I had. But anyways, it's got the similar or higher traffic counts, and it's functioning as one way, and just built it, so I'd assume it would stay that way for 15 years. I had a good one and then forget it, so. Anyways, leave it there. I can always follow up. That's all I have, but thank you for the presentation. I think it's great. We're excited about it. We started this back in 18 or 19, and looking forward to the results. The TAC committee sound like it's going to be just staff. I don't know if that's still open or if you want elected officials there, but take that into consideration.
Just got another comment or question, just in light of the Bill 60 stuff happening that we're hoping won't impact it. Is there benefit to kind of reframing the name of the project from Road Diet to something like, Hamlet's Safety Core Reconstruction, or is there some sort of other terminology that we could be using to reframe what this project is, to not flag anything that's going to give us some issues?
Dear Mr. Mayor, I mean, we did call it a road study. It's the overall study of it. I mean, sure, that the alternatives in there. Yeah, we could look at that terminology, I suppose, but the study.
Oh, okay, it does say road study. I thought
Yeah,
it said
so
road
they were
diet.
purposefully saying it's only a road diet study.
Yeah,
There's other elements here that we could possibly implement, so.
And we're staying away from the term road diet if we could. We will focus on road reconfiguration or redesignation or however we want to call it, but not specifically saying road diet.
Okay, good. Thanks.
That's it for today. No, we're good. Okay. So you have a recommendation?
Yes, it's seriously for information.
Can I get a move, please? Councilor Harris, Councilor Bailey, all in favor? Great. Thanks again. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So organized here. Remain closed, Madam Clerk, you'd like to read a resolution.
That council shall go into closed session under section 239 of the municipal for the purpose of a confidential report regarding personal matters written by an individual, including municipal board employees, not to speak in resource matter. position of land by the municipality and local board, and that's related to a township road allowance. A confidential report regarding advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that's related to a regulatory bylaw. Confidential report, or sorry, confidential minutes from the previous closed meetings, and that's for the March 4th, 2026 closed council meeting, March 13th, 2026 closed council meeting. And then finally, confidential report on litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrators, tribunals affecting municipality or local board. And that's with respect to a plan.
Glad I didn't make you read that. First the job, see you go. Can I get a mover for that, please? First, Mr. Wilson, all in favor? Carried.